Welcome everyone. We're going to talk about different instructional design models. How do I use them? How do I combine and use them together? I get a lot of people, especially a lot of my students when they're, getting ready to graduate, trying to figure out how do I combine all of these? I've learned all these different things like Kirkpatrick's and things like words like ADDIE or Gagne's 9 events, and can I use them together? Like if someone asks me what instructional design model am I using for this project, do I say Gagne's 9 events? Is that appropriate? Is that the right kind of response? How do I use these? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, in fact, during the entire instructional design process, you use multiple models, and I'm going to show you how they all kind of go together and try to make this really simple. I talk about this in my book, but in my next version of it, I'm going to create an entire chapter where I just go through the models and show you exactly when and how to implement them. All right, so let's take a look at the basic generic instructional design process. And we're going to take a look at this from the perspective of ADDIE because it's the most easy way to look at it from a systems point of view, from like the outside looking in. It's just a really easy way to look at it, regardless of what version of ADDIE you're using, Dick and Carey or whatever you happen to be using. But let's just look at it from that perspective because it makes it really easy to break down so that I can show you where models fit into this process. All right, so the first part that we have, the first thing is we have this front-end analysis. So when we decide to do front-end analysis, that's what is the problem? What is the problem here? So that's when I'm asking myself, is this even a training problem? Like, what is the problem? We're identifying it. So we choose some kind of front-end analysis process, performance improvement process. Most common one in instructional design is the HPT model. So I have that listed here in our front-end analysis problem. Boom, we know it's a training problem. We move on to our instructional design, right? So as soon as we know it's a training problem, we select an instructional design model, whether that's generic ADDIE, whether that's Dick and Carey, whether that's some kind of rapid model, or whatever it happens to be that we want to choose that day for that project, whatever it works. We choose our instructional design model. In that first phase, that analysis, we're going to do, our gap analysis, learner analysis, context analysis, goal analysis, task, all that stuff that's required to do a proper analysis, right? So in the first part, we choose our instructional design model. Okay, so we selected a front-end analysis model to identify the problem and our instructional design model to guide us through the rest of our process. All right, then we get to design. So in design, there are several types of models that we can choose, or what I really call strategies. The first is our organizational strategy. This is what is going to guide our instructional. So let's say that I am doing, e-learning or a course. Whatever I'm doing, I might choose a different kind of organizational strategy. So for example, a good organizational strategy that's very common, probably the most common in instructional design, is Gagne's 9 events. This is the layout of our content. This tells us, excite the learners, put your objectives, then present some content, then have the learners practice the content. This is our organizational guide. So you always have to have some kind of organizational guide. So you always have an organizational strategy. Next, we have our delivery or our learning strategies. How are we getting people to learn? Are we using ARCs, motivation to motivate them? Are we going to use like problem-based learning strategies? Are we going to use case scenarios? What are we actually doing to get the learners to learn? So we choose some kind of strategies here, like chunking. We can choose multiple strategies, right? All right. Next, we have development. So we're going to choose what models or strategies are we going to use in development. We have, things like UI design, like for our interface, our users. We've got the multimedia principles, things like Fitts Law. What are we going to develop this like? So we choose various types of strategies that we can use in development. Next, during implementation and evaluation, we choose how are we actually evaluating this. So we use things like Kirkpatrick's evaluation model or whatever evaluation model we wanted to use. So you can see that in the entire instructional design process, I might have used 20 different types of whatever you want to call them, models, strategies. I might have chosen 20 of them, right? we start out with the what is the problem? We've got our HPT, we choose an HPT model. We decide it's a training problem. We got to choose an instructional design model. We might choose whatever it happens to be, Dick and Carey. We get to design, and we know we got to choose this organizational strategy like Gagne's 9 events. We know that we need to choose our learning or delivery strategies like ARCs or problem-based learning, chunking, that kind of thing. We know for development, we've got to choose what is this going to look like? What is guiding our color choice? What's guiding are we using sound and images or narration and images or text and images? What's guiding us to do that? The multimedia principles, principles of interface design, that kind of stuff. Why we're putting our buttons on certain phases of the screen or what size they are. Then we have our implementation and evaluation. And finally, we choose the model for that, which an example is Kirkpatrick. So you can see that within the instructional design process, there's many different models or strategies that you're going to use. And I wanted to show you the really quick and dirty way that how all of these are used in the process, throughout the process. You have to use multiple. You can't just not have an organizational strategy. You can't just not have a learning. If there's no learning strategy, you're not designing learning. You're just teaching you're presenting something. Presenting something is not learning. Just showing someone e-learning. You got to have a learning. How are people learning? What is your learning strategy? Learning strategy is not Gagne's 9 events. Gagne's 9 events helps you organize your content. So it's understanding the differences of when each of these are used in the process and then choosing the appropriate one for the project that you're on. I hope this was informative for you. If you have any questions, let me know. This is, as I said, this is one of the places where I find designers get confused early on because they're not quite sure how they've learned about all these different models, all these different strategies, but they're not quite sure what the big picture is, how they all fit together. Thank you.